Big Health, Political Courts and the Bundy Family, Part 1. Last week or so, I wrote a short story about myself. Here's one a bit longer and of a very serious nature that quite literally hurts my heart. Please read and share. My dear friends, Ammon and Lisa Bundy and their children lived in Emmett, Idaho for nearly 9 years in their dream home. They had 5 acres of irrigated land with 360 fruit trees, many that they planted themselves, a beautiful, spacious home with an amazing view, a large shop where Ammon and his boys worked on many vehicles and made great memories doing so. There was lots of room for the children and grandchildren to work, run, and play. Unfortunately, this strong, loving family were compelled to leave like criminals in the night. For 48 hours, a crew of about 15 people packed and loaded trailers, as inconspicuously as possible. Early the morning of the 3rd day, the Bundys drove out of Idaho with hopes of peace and a brighter future. The Monday previous, Judge Brent Whiting, a Brad Little appointee, ruled that the lawyers who had been attacking Ammon and his family for years could freely go into the Bundy home and inspect the family's possessions in preparation to take everything. He ordered that Lisa and the Bundy children could be present while these attorneys browsed through their home, but Ammon must not be there when they came. The judge also ordered the Gem County Sheriff to escort the lawyers through the Bundys' home as they went from room to room looking through all the family's personal and private possessions. No search warrant was issued. No criminal investigation was pending. Ammon said, speaking of Judge Whiting's order, "Our Constitution declares that a person has an inalienable right to be secure in their home. A family's home is their most secure, private, and sacred place. My family would have never been the same if this intrusion would have been tolerated." Like robbers, the very people who have attacked and threatened the Bundys for so long, were seeking to go through their home, into their bedrooms and closets, casing their possessions like thieves, deciding what they were going to steal, right in front of the family, with a sheriff's escort. Meanwhile, their protector and provider would be compelled to be somewhere else, banned by a corrupt judge from being at his own home while his enemies sifted through everything and intimidated his loved ones. Ammon asked, "How would I explain to my little children why these men were in their bedrooms looking through their things with a police officer? What would I say to them when they asked, 'Daddy, where were you?' I could not let this happen." The Bundy family had already suffered much for the stands for freedom and liberty they have made. This violation, among the many, was too great. These people had taken so much from them, and Ammon felt he could not let them take the peace and security his family felt in their home. The St. Luke's Hospital lawyers and their confidant judge, Brent Whiting, had gone too far. In their hate and spite, they wanted to show Ammon Bundy that they had full power over him and his family. That they could do whatever they wanted, even enter his home, violate his family's privacy, go through their possessions, and smugly intimidate them in their own home, and that law enforcement officers would do anything they told them to do. "I had a choice to make," said Ammon. "Would I stand at the front door of my home with a shotgun or remove my family from this situation altogether and try to find peace and a home somewhere else?" For many years, Ammon has been successfully standing up for people, his father on his ranch, the Hammond family in Oregon, and many others, such as getting baby Cyrus back to his loving and caring parents. He also stood against Governor Little's COVID lockdowns and helped keep Idaho one of the freest places in the world during the pandemic scare. Then he ran for governor. At first, the establishment thought his campaign would be a joke. However, they soon found out how seriously supported and organized he was. Within a few months, nearly 20% of Idaho voters were behind him. This shook the Idaho establishment to the core, and they had to do something about his message of freedom that was spreading like wildfire. Like liberal Democrats, posing as Republicans, rather than facing Bundy's policies of freedom, they used the corrupted courts to defame and consume him. As the primary influencer in the most powerful Idaho political group, IACI, St. Luke's Health System executives sued Bundy, sued the Ammon Bundy for governor campaign, and sued his campaign advisor, Diego Rodriguez, baby Cyrus's grandfather. No coincidence there, right? This was an effort to defame and sway the Idaho public against Ammon Bundy. As a candidate for governor, Ammon ignored the litigation as much as possible, focusing on spreading his campaign message of peace and freedom throughout Idaho. However, tens of thousands of documents were being filed in the courts against Ammon, Diego, and the campaign. Well funded with taxpayer dollars, St. Luke's executives hired multiple teams of attorneys to bury Bundy with mountains of legal documents and court proceedings. It was obvious what they were doing, lawfare is the correct term, and no Idaho judge was going to stop them. Why would they, when they are part of the Idaho establishment? Ammon Bundy represented a loss of their power and he had to be stopped. In open corruption and in violation of the Idaho Rules of Civil Procedure, a $53 million judgment was obtained against the Bundy parties. The presiding judge, Lynn Norton, was personally motivated to destroy any influence Bundy had in Idaho. Her husband, it was later learned, is a highly paid employee of the Bureau of Land Management, the same agency that came after the Bundy family in Nevada and the Hammond family in Oregon. The same agency that had Bundy, his brothers and father, and others arrested and thrown in federal prison for 2 years without any convictions. The same agency caught red-handed in prosecutorial misconduct and forced to release the Bundy defendants as innocent men, allowing them to return to their families. The fact that Judge Norton did not recuse herself, knowing her own bias, is proof of the court's corruption. Many of Lynn Norton's colleagues in the court must have known her and her husband's conflicted connections to the Bundy family. Yet, none of them mention it until after a judgment was secured and the connection was exposed. To this day, the Idaho courts have done nothing with the evidence of this corruption. Click here to listen to Part 2.